Hello all, good morning, good evening or good afternoon based on wherever you are. And yes, the week 6 is over on the BC Open quiz that we are doing on LinkedIn. Thank you for all your responses and I hope it's helping you to learn something. And I was thinking about the trend, how people are participating in the quiz, and this is how it looks like. We saw a downtrend in second or the third week, but I guess it's pretty good at this moment. People are participating, and I guess that's the idea. So as I said earlier, if even one person participate on the quiz, I'll continue it. There are some interesting comments this week, which is specifically about how I should be writing my questions in English. And thank you for the comment. But sorry, English is not my first language, so sorry for that. But okay, that's all about it. Let's get into the questions that were asked this week and what were the right answers. Because some of them are pretty interesting. Because I thought I read it on documentation, but then when I tried it, it was something else. So let's figure that out. So the first question of this week was, which statement is incorrect about tooltips in Business Central? And the reason why I asked this question is there are certain changes that happens on the tooltip in the recent version. And I was a little bit curious that we have that understanding or not. So the options were that you can define tooltips on table fields. The page fields, if you have fields on the pages, they inherit the tooltip. The tooltip will be ignored if it is written on the page. And fourth was that the error message or the warning AA0234 is a tooltip related warning. As you can see here very clearly that the trend of the vote was highest voted was on that. The incorrect statement is that you cannot define tooltips on table field. So let's figure that out. Okay, so let me open my vscode and let's see. Okay, so here's the table, which is a copy of customer ledger entry, and typically we will create a page on it. And then using AZAL extension and other great extensions that we have for Business Central or AL, we can easily add tooltips on the pages. And the tooltip kind of helps or acts as a quick tip of that field so that users can find or understand what that field is used for. So in this is from the beginning, if I'm not wrong, on Business Central, but so that you can add tooltips on the pages. But in 2024 release wave 1, which is BC24, Microsoft allowed to have tooltips on tables rather than on pages. So here is the table. I can actually go here and let's say this field or any other field for that matter and actually create a tooltip and define that. Okay, now it's not supported in the commonly used extension that we use at this moment for adding tooltips in using the wizards that we use with AZAL extension, but I'm pretty sure these enhancements will come into it in future. So the first option is that you can actually define them on table field. Now let's understand how or what Microsoft or what other extensions have done to kind of make that journey or transition smoother. So when you are on the page, you can now, and I'm not sure who came up with this, but I think it's Microsoft at this moment, that you can convert the page control tooltip to the table field tooltip for this instance only, which means this field only, or for all in this document, or you can convert the page control tooltip across the all pages in your project and move them to the tables. And I'll just show you one so that you can understand how this works. So I have moved the tooltip for this field from here to the table field, and you will notice here on the properties the tooltip has moved from there to here. Now let's understand the use case of adding tooltips into the table field. So you're defining a table and you start with defining what the tooltip should be for that particular field on your table. Now at the same time, you can also additionally add a different tooltip on the page here. You can say, okay, tooltip, and okay, I went pretty fast into it, and this is page tooltip. Okay. And because for the same source table you can have multiple types of pages, a list page, a card page, a page for doing something else, let's say a lookup and all, and you would want a different tooltip on different pages. So if you would like to override the tooltip that is defined on the table, you can surely define it on the page, and the page tooltip will take precedence if it also exists on the table. If the page does not have a tooltip defined, then the table tooltip takes priority and it kind of use that tooltip rather than the page tooltip if it is not defined. So surprisingly, the incorrect statement was, and let me open up here. Okay, the incorrect statement was that it is ignored at runtime if on page. So if a tooltip is on the page, it is not ignored. It is prioritized to be shown to the user. So you can define the tooltip on the page, as we saw. Pages will automatically inherit the tooltip if that is not defined on the page. And this warning, and let me show you the article about it if I can find it easily. Okay, where that is. Okay, so the code cop warning AA234, which is associated here, is that you need to write the tooltip property for all field on a table object. So even the warning has been changed that it is specific to the table object now. You must write the tooltip in the tooltip property for all fields on the table. This helps user to map app and fields and all. So like the width is going away, I'm pretty sure sooner than later this will become a warning, and I'm just assuming at this moment that you should have a tooltip on the table, not on the page. As in, you can have on the page, but you should also have it on the table. If you read the documentation, tooltip property now supports table field, which was not available earlier, but that's here now. And if you would like to kind of see this into action, there is a YouTube video that I have recorded in past. You can go ahead and watch this. The link of this video would be in the pinned comment or on the description of this video. Go ahead and watch it so that you understand how this changed. Okay, moving forward to the next question into it. So the next question was, which of the following property includes a text or a code field in modern search? Now modern search is pretty new. It is announced in Business Center 25, which is 2024 release wave 2. And the options were optimize for modern search, include for text search, optimize for text search, and none of above. And there were quite a few votings on it, where 31% votes were for optimize for modern search and the maximum votes were for include for text search. So let's quickly understand what it is. And I'll not go into details of it, but if you are interested in understanding what is modern search, how you do it and all, this is again a video on YouTube. I'll add it into the pinned comment and the description of the video, how it is different, how it is used, what you can do and what you cannot do on this. So go ahead and watch this whenever you have time. But let's come back to the VS Code. So on this table which we have added, I have added that property here, which is optimized for text search. If you add this property, which is optimized for text search, this automatically adds that field into the modern search for your code and text field. So you can't apply it on integer or date fields because that's not the intention for it. But if you try to set it, it'll say the property optimized for text search can only be used in the field type of code or text. And you can kind of add new fields into it if that is not added by Microsoft. I'm not sure that you can extend it or not, but if you want, let's quickly see a demo of it. So if I try to extend the customer table, and let's see, can I modify a field, which I haven't done. So let me see that can I modify a field or not and add it into the text search. Okay, let's say search name, and let's say optimize Okay, that option is not available to optimize, but you can surely, if you are adding new field, you can add this property in the base Microsoft table where you are extending it, but this property is not allowed to be, cannot be customized. So you cannot change it on existing fields that are available by Microsoft, but you can add it. But don't, just one reminder, don't just blindly add every text or code field into it. Think about which field customers or users will be using to test or to search data into the page. So make sure that you use it wisely when you are defining this property. And here is the documentation about it, that it includes the optimized text index to allow faster search in UI. But don't just go and blindly add it on every text and code field. So the right option here was optimize for text search. Okay, coming to the next question. What is the primary key or primary purpose of the primary keys in Business Central? The options were uniquely identify the table row, store data into a specific order, improve query performance, and enforce data integrity. With 146 votes into it, the voting pattern was very clear that why the primary keys are available in Business Central. And if you are interested, I'll surely add it into the pinned comment. Here is the answer, that the primary key uniquely identify each record in the table. Okay, and so on and so forth. So you can surely read it through, which is pretty simple here. Okay, coming to the next question, which is how many fields can be included in a primary key in SQL Server? And I guess here was the comment that, okay, I should be thinking about the words, but okay. So the idea of this question was to understand what is the max number of fields that you can add into the primary key on a SQL Server table. The options were 5, 20, 16, and 10. And the trend seems very clear that people answered 51% with the 20 fields. Interestingly, and this is, I guess, where it gets a little bit interesting, when I was reading SQL Server documentation, and it's important sometimes that we need to understand our backend, the documentation very clearly says that a primary key can't exceed 16 columns and a total key length of 900 bytes. So it says that the primary key can't exceed 16 columns in a SQL Server table. Okay, this is for SQL Server version 2018, 2016 and later, and then the primary key can't exceed 16 columns. So before recording this video, I was doing a trial of certain things. So I thought, okay, let me create a copy of customer ledger entry. So I went and tried to create a new table called MO customer ledger entry. The idea of MO is so that I can search it earlier, nothing else, right? So I'm creating a table cust ledger entry, which is customer ledger entry, with these fields which are same. And then in the primary key constraint, I'm actually adding 20 fields here, which most of you answered. So I thought, okay, but the documentation, remember the documentation says 16 field. Okay, but let's run it and let's see what happens. So when I try to execute it, it actually completes. And when I refresh it here, I can actually see a table MO customer ledger entry with key or the index as all the fields that I've added here. It says index key column and all the 20 columns are here. So is the documentation wrong? I'll have to think about it, right? Should we try increasing this? Let's see that. So I'll just add, let's say, dimension set ID into it. Maybe 20 is the limit. Let me try increasing this and try to increase it with 21 this time. Let's execute it. It still got completed. So when I come here and I do a refresh, I still see the table and the key is as expected. So if you look at it, it has all these fields and then the dimension set ID at the end. It's marked as the primary key. So I'm a little bit confused, and if you know the answer, let me know, because I first relied on the documentation And I thought, okay, because I knew something else which would be a question in the future, but I thought it was limited to 16 fields. But it seems at this moment that it is not. So is it the wrong documentation that's need to be updated? I'm not sure. But at this moment, I can actually create a key with more than 20 fields at this moment, as in I just created one with 21 with the primary key constraint. But based on the documentation, the right answer for SQL Server is 16. In the prior version, I don't know when I stopped checking it, but in the prior versions of NAV, you can't do on a SQL Server when you create a new table, you can't go beyond 16. I know what you're thinking, but NAV or Business Central now always said that you can add 20 fields into the keys. And that was a different kind of way how SQL was maintaining those 20 fields into the key. But SQL Server, at least previously, used to support 16 fields in a primary key. Is the documentation incorrect? Am I referring to the wrong documentation? Or if you know what I'm doing wrong here, let me know into the comments. Okay. The next question is related and which is more interesting to me because I never thought it'll happen again. Okay. How many fields can be included in a primary key in vscode, as in for AL for sure, or Business Central? And the options were 5, 20, 16 and 10, and obviously, as very clear, 64% people thought it's 20. Okay. Why I'm saying 64% people thought about it? Because I actually tried it and I also thought it's 20, right? Okay, so let's go back to VS Code, and this is where it gets a little bit interesting, and somebody need to tell me what I'm doing wrong, because I have done everything in the books as written in the books, right? You can go ahead and read Microsoft documentation. It says 20 fields. So on this big table, I went down and I created a key, this key, okay, key 2. This is or let's comment this. Yeah, this is more than 20 for sure, and I can exactly tell you how many are there. So the first line contained 10 fields, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9, and then 10, and the second line also contained 10 20, and then I have additional 2 field, which is 22 field at the backs at this moment. If you want to count it, pause the video and watch it, but it is actually 22 fields at this moment. So 10 you have counted, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7, okay, and then 8 9 and 10, and then 2 additional. So there are 22 fields in this key, which I have defined as the clustered key on the table, right? So what happens if I try to publish this? As in, first it allowed me to build this, or allowed me to have more than 20 fields. I was a little bit surprised, but I thought maybe, okay, the compiler doesn't understand it here, let me try to publish it, and it'll fail. So what I did is I did a control F5. I also, just FYI, also published it as a PTE. Okay, so I did a F5 here, and that should take me to my environment, and this is Business Central Cloud, just FYI. Hopefully this should stop me, as we all have learned all these years. I come here, it gets published, it is loading the default page which is set up on my launch.json, and there's no error. And I can actually go back and look at the table in the table info. If I go back, and I thought, okay, let me see table information. Okay, and search for it. So, and I spent a pretty good amount of time going back to Microsoft documentation about Business Central, primary keys, and how many fields, as far as I was able to find out, and as far as we all have read about things about Business Central, it is always 20, right? For all these years, it was always 20. So I thought, okay, maybe the table did not get published, maybe there is no error, but the table actually exists. And table have all those 22 fields marked as primary key at this moment, which is sorted ascending. So I can actually see all the fields marked in the way that they should not be, but they are. So if you look at it, entry number, customer number, posting date, document type, document number, and so on and so forth, all these fields are marked as primary. So I think we need to get that clarity from Microsoft, or if you guys know it, let me know into the comment section that how I can add, how I'm able to add more than 20 fields into my primary key, which is still, I'm a little bit confused. I'll have to do my findings of what is the max limit, but this is pretty confusing at this moment that I can actually add more than 20 fields into my primary key. And just FYI, the key is this and set to cluster true, which should lead us to our next question, is how you define the primary key of a table in Business Central. The options were that it should be first key and the key name should be primary key. The second option was it should be set as cluster true. The third option was you should make sure that you have maintained SQL index true. And the last option was that the first key in the table. And based on 137 votes, the majority of answer came down to 39%, which is first key on the table. There are still 36% people thought that it should be cluster true. No offense, in NAV days, it was kind of mandated to have cluster true. But the correct answer is it should be the first key in the table. Irrespective of you set it to cluster true or not, you never have to hard code a name as primary key, which 24% people thought. Sorry guys, it just need to be the first key on the table. So what I'll do is I'll go back here and I'll uninstall this extension. Okay, so that we can then check or kind of explain this. Extension management. Okay, and here is the extension. So let's say uninstall this because I'm going to change it and I don't want to force things, right? Okay, so I've uninstalled this and then this gets unpublished also, I guess. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is this is cluster true and I'm keeping this on, but I'm actually bringing this key up, which is the key entry number, which is the actual primary key of this table, right? And I'm enabling it. Okay, and then I'm removing the cluster true from here. Okay, now because this key contain entry number, that's why there is an error. So let me remove that. That should have been a question, but okay. So the first key have no property set, the other key have the clustered key set, and in here let's do the what we call that maintain SQL index as true. Okay, we have all the keys. We have the first key without the name primary key, the name is key 1. We have the other key which is set to cluster true, and then we have a key with maintain SQL index true. So let's do a publish of this and let's wait here and see what happens. So when you create a table, you have to define the primary key of that table, which based on the documentation and which is correct, which I've tested it out, that the first key, irrespective of whatever the fields are specified into it, but if it is the first key on the table, that by default becomes the primary key, irrespective of it is set to cluster true or is it set to maintain SQL index or whatever the name of that table key is, right? So if I look for, I guess 50102, that's the table, yeah. So if I come here now, I'll see that the only arrow that you'll see, which is kind of the pointer at the primary key or the sorting, default sorting, will be on the entry number, which is my first key. So on this, the correct answer is, as most of you have said it correctly, is the first key in the table, irrespective of whatever other properties are set to it. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this week questions. All the links, all the videos that I've showed you in this will be available in the description and the pinned comment of this video. Again, just a reminder, this whole quiz is just to help everyone, just to rebrush some concept and find out some interesting fact, just like we found out today around the keys and all. But do let me into the comments what do you think about it. Is there a specific area in Business Central that you think we should have a separate quiz about? I'm out this week, so if you have questions on comments on other things, I'll reply them on early next week when I'm back. But the questions will be there for the week. I have already scheduled them, so every morning you'll get a new question, as you always get. Don't subscribe to the channel if you don't want, but my idea is, please, is humble request is, please share this video, or not even this video, please share those questions on the LinkedIn, so that more and more people participate and we all learn as a Business Central community. So if you like the question, if you like the responses, if you think this all is helping you in rebrushing your concept or you're learning something new, make sure to share the questions with more audience, so that people have more understanding about these questions and more people participate and learn from it. Till then, have a great time, and I'll see you sooner than later, most probably next week, with a new video on the YouTube channel. Till then, keep learning and keep sharing whatever you're learning. Let's do that. Okay, thank you. Have a good day.